Can effective debate strategy help uncover common ground? What role do facts and feelings play in disagreement? Is it possible to engage in debate without triggering defensiveness in others? And if so, how can we frame our positions to encourage cooperation instead of resistance? All of that and more in today's video. How can we approach disagreements with the aim of civilly finding common ground? In my last video, The Art of Disagreeing Respectfully, we outlined the importance of approaching disagreement from a place of genuine concern from the well-being of others, and from a desire to engage in collaborative problem-solving. As important as knowing these principles is, however, navigating conversations without concrete practical guidelines can be challenging. Many of us struggle with knowing how to effectively express ourselves in a way that fosters understanding and unity, rather than defensiveness and division. With that in mind, today's video will build upon the themes of the previous video, but this time with an emphasis on examining concrete ways we can incorporate the principles of constructive discourse into our daily conversation. According to the Harvard Negotiation Project, a research initiative based at Harvard University that aims to develop theories and practices for effective conflict resolution, one of the most important strategies for finding common ground is principled negotiation. What exactly is a principled negotiation? Well, according to Roger Fisher, William Ury, and Bruce Patton, principled negotiation is an approach to discourse that focuses on underlying interests more than one specific position. To translate that into layman's terms, instead of focusing on a specific request or solution, such as implementing a certain political policy or dividing up the House budget a certain way, it is generally more beneficial to identify the fundamental needs, desires, and motivations that drive each party's stance and work together to find a solution that addresses the interests of all parties. Such an approach is effective not only because it encourages active listening and empathy, but also because, by shifting the conversation from rigid positions to the interests that inform those positions, negotiators can uncover shared goals and potential solutions that may not have been initially apparent. In other words, a collaborative approach not only fosters a more open dialogue, but also increases the likelihood of finding creative solutions that meet the needs of all parties involved. How exactly does one engage in principled negotiation? Well, in addition to focusing on interests rather than positions, it also helps to separate the argument from the person making it. Too often, especially because of the defensiveness we have been trained to feel in the face of disagreement, we focus on the character of the person disputing with us rather than the nature of the dispute itself. Such misdirected focus begets personal attacks rather than constructive problem solving that could be used to find a mutually beneficial outcome for all parties. To keep our mind focused on the topic at hand, it helps to approach disputes from a place of objectivity rather than subjectivity. What does that mean in practice? Most principally, it means referring to objective metrics whenever possible, avoiding reducing people to labels, and avoiding unnecessarily loaded emotional triggers or accusations aimed at stirring the other party up or entrapping them. Conflict resolution should be about mutually beneficial solutions, not emotional self-vindication. Here I will anticipate a possible objection. It's all well and good to seek mutually beneficial solutions in cases where both parties are approaching a problem as equals. But what about a scenario wherein one party has harmed another, or a case where one party is objectively right about matters of fact and another is wrong? The questions raised by this objection are important and valid. In the former case, wherein one party has harmed another, part of the underlying interests brought to the table involved rectifying past injustice. Principled negotiation doesn't aim to remove emotions from discussion entirely, or pretend that certain things aren't owed to people as a matter of right. Rather, principled negotiation seeks to channel emotions into the formulation and expression of one's key interests involved, rather than into name-calling, labeling, demonization, etc. By approaching past injustice in such a manner, one can remain open to rectifying past harms in multiple ways, while still insisting that rectification be made. In the latter case, wherein one party is factually right and another is wrong, it is important to agree upon what objective standards are relevant to the discussion. When a person is willing to acknowledge objective standards, they may be more open to acknowledging errors in their perspective. That said, it's fair to note that not everyone will be willing to approach a conversation objectively. In such cases, it's okay to recognize that the ability to discourse effectively is limited, and that it might be better to walk away. Are there any other strategies that help direct disagreement towards finding common ground? Of course. According to the psychologist Marshall Rosenburg, author of Nonviolent Communication, communication is most effective when it is compassionate and empathetic. What does it mean to be compassionate and empathetic in conversation? First and foremost, it means treating the other person fairly, recognizing the concerns raised, and trying to effectively address them while still remaining principled regarding one's own interests. Rosenburg himself provides steps to achieving this. First, we should begin by observing the conversation without personal judgment, and initially describing facts without interpretation. When we approach a conversation from the beginning by framing it as though the other person is ill-intentioned, or that there's some ulterior meaning behind the facts they present, the other party can feel like they're not being respected or listened to. Second, we should acknowledge our own feelings about the matter at hand and tie them to our underlying needs, what the Harvard Negotiation Project calls interests, to identify where important needs aren't being met. Finally, we should make requests aimed at addressing those needs, but with an openness to collaboration wherein we express willingness to resolve issues in multiple possible ways, rather than by demanding compliance. Throughout all of this, we should avoid imposing labels, since labels can lead us to diminish a person's concerns by placing them in a box we feel we already understand and can write off as incorrect, misguided, or malicious. Here I'll anticipate another possible objection. While empathy is all well and good, and we'd obviously benefit from a more empathetic society, can't it be a liability to be empathetic in a world where many of the people around us are not? Can't we open ourselves up to the possibility of harm by allowing ourselves to be vulnerable around people who may not be approaching us honestly, or who may be so entrenched in overarching social dynamics that they're unwilling to address us as unique individuals with unique concerns? Once again, that's an important and valid objection. I would answer by arguing that empathy does not mean overriding boundaries or oversharing. While it can be helpful to express one's feelings about a topic, that doesn't mean that one is bound to reveal personal information they don't feel comfortable sharing. Likewise, empathy means understanding another person's perspective, not necessarily entangling your emotions with theirs to the point that you feel personally responsible for what happens to them. In any conversation, since discourse is two-sided, we can only control the approach and behavior of our side, and we certainly can't find ourselves responsible for what the other side does. That said, while we can't guarantee that the other party will respond positively to an empathetic approach, we do increase the odds of effective conflict resolution when we approach disputes in such a manner. And as far as social dynamics go, well, it's true that a conversation between two people can't immediately change society at large. Emphasizing individual responsibility in conversation empowers people to find ways of bettering whatever conditions they've been given, fostering personal growth, as well as self and situational awareness. What do you think are the most effective methods for finding common ground? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you can be notified when new videos are released. Also be sure to like this video so that YouTube recommends it to others. If you'd like to support this channel for as little as $1 a month, you can also become a supporter on Patreon. Links in the description of this video. While finding common ground isn't always easy, approaching debate from a collaborative framework is immensely rewarding. The harder we work to foster mutual understanding and interpersonal connection, the more we enrich not only our own lives, but the lives of our communities as well. Be principled and maintain boundaries, but always remember to approach discourse from a place of love and compassion. Peace be with you. This has been The Philosopher.